What's good everyone, I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to make a quick follow-up video to my last video, which was the Azucena changes in patch 2.01, and I just wanted to expand a little bit more on the while running 3-2 and how you can get respect off it in this new update, because if you remember, last patch, it was +5 into stance when they gave the lib transition for the first time, right? And lib 2 was a 14 frame safe mid, borderline homing, heat engager in the +5 situation, so it just meant that you could keep really doing it and checking all their buttons, and they were forced to do something like armor, or if they had a uniquely fast move like Yoshi's Flash, they would have to do something like that to beat it. But because it was so quick, it would pretty much beat everything, track everyone, and you could just loop it over and over again until you had the respect to do a 50-50. But now with the lib transition being +3, things like jabs and down jabs, which are 10 frames, they're going to beat it now because they're faster, and 11 frame moves are going to trade too, but you're typically going to see jabs, and I think what we're going to start seeing the most is the down jabs. I saw a video on Twitter outlining how the down jab, it pretty much beats all the options unless you try to like address it directly with the lib auto parry or by jumping over it. So example, we go into stance and they do a down jab, the lib auto parry is going to beat it there. If we do an orbital, that's going to win too, but that's about all we have if we choose to go into lib. I've also got the jab set up, and in the video I mentioned that if they jab, you can do lib down 3, which will go under it, and if they do a jab string, it'll counter hit launch it, so that's really strong. I also mentioned that auto parry works too. On a singular jab with no heat, pretty useless, but with heat, really good, and if they do a jab string, you'll often get to their back and you'll be able to punish them in some way. And I also mentioned that the lib 1+2, you know, it's usually going to go under jabs too, and I even mentioned a bit of a unique option, but delaying up forward 2 will go around a lot of retaliation like that for a free heat engager in 3-3. But the one thing about all of these options, for the most part, is that they're very risky in some way, whether they be linear or unsafe on block or both. They're very high commitment is what I'm trying to say, so you don't want to rely on them too heavy. You can, and if you're confident in your read and you know you're going to get big damage, why not? And you know, a lot of these moves double as other things like mid mix-ups, as well as going under the high, for example. But all in all, if you don't want to commit, it's good to have another option. And one thing I didn't mention in my previous video is about just not going into the stance at all, and it's something I totally forgot about because, you know, last season was just so easy to keep enforcing that stance. Now without the stance, the one running 3-2 is only +2 instead of +3, but that doesn't matter. So I wanted to give a big shout out to Midane. He reminded me about this on Twitter. Once again, I totally overlooked it, so I want to use this video to explain how you can use no stance and then mixing up between stance and no stance to really confuse your opponent to get more respect. So one thing that's important with stance transitions that go in at low plus frames or low minus or minus frames that can be contested by your opponent when they see it is how ambiguous the animation is when transitioning into the stance. Now Azucena, with no stance, she simply returns to standing, but with the lib transition, you can see her sort of do like a little swivel. It's all like a 180. She sort of hops into the stance. But this is extremely ambiguous, especially in real match conditions. So I've been practicing a little bit. In practice mode, if she's solely looping while running 3-2, I'm pretty good at down jabbing only when she goes into stance. So I've got some options preloaded here. One of them is while running 3-2 into lib 2, and I'm meant to down jab that, and the other is while running 3-2 on its own into a sidewalk that would go around my down jab if I accidentally did a down jab. So let's see how I go in the practice environment. I saw the transition, so I pressed down jab. I was already a bit slow there, so it's even when I'm looking for it. See, that time I didn't press. That time I did press, so I'm getting it, but even in practice mode, I'm not having the 100% success rate. So you can imagine in a real game where the Azucena is using many other moves, plus also changing up when she does and doesn't do lib from while running 3-2 to make it a bit more confusing, you can imagine how difficult it is and unreliable a down jab or a jab might be. And especially with these down jabs, they're pretty low reward, right? You steal a turn back, but the damage is pretty minimal. So it can be quite a risk to make a mistake, because even if you get hit by lib 2, you're eating a heat engager and much more damage than the down jab would have done. So we want to use what we would call in, you know, fighting games, mental stack, which is, you know, referring to a lot of the options that are happening in the game and how they stack up in your head and how you have to pay attention to everything and how that can lead to mistakes through being overwhelmed. So if I now return to the situation where I'm just looping the while running 3-2 into stance lib 2 or the while running 3-2 into sidewalk, if I tell myself that when she does lib I want a down jab, but I also try to do another option to cover what she's doing when she doesn't go into stance, let's just say I feel like she's going to walk as she is here, so I'm going to do my homing move, immediately my success rate plummets. So let's have a look. Got it that time? Already slow on the down jab. I messed it up, I pressed a totally different button. I just froze up, right? So if someone is consistently down jabbing the stance, it's either A, that they're just doing it every time they see while running 3-2, or B, maybe they can react to the stance by some miracle in a real game, but the odds of them actually not freezing up on the while running 3-2 no stance is so unlikely. So I'm going to show you how you can use this information in a real game. So with all of that information about the mental stack in mind, you want to use a healthy amount of stance and no stance to keep your opponent guessing and to confuse them as to whether you're going into the stance or not, because it's ambiguous enough when it's predictable in practice mode, but in a real game it's going to be almost impossible to see. So feel free to do a bit of both. Check without the stance, check with the stance, try and figure out what they do. Maybe in this case they're going to down jab every time. A safe read on that, I don't have to go into stance, I can step, down forward 2 once I see the down jab, and I'm going to get a full juggle for that. I recommend stepping down jabs to the right. I found it a bit more consistent after while running 3-2, but I believe it works both ways. And eventually, maybe if your opponent eats something huge like that and they keep making the wrong decisions, then you'll find that when you use running 3-2, they freeze up a bit, and when you see the freeze, if you want to go for a big mix, then you can enforce that big mix up, say with the hell sweep or something like that, to catch opponents who stop moving, stop attacking, they just freeze up. But you don't even have to go into lib. You can simply check them with the low. It's very difficult for them to distinguish in a real game, I promise. So if you see those down jabs, see if they do the down jab every time. If it's a super rare case scenario and someone's gotten used to the while running 3-2 into lib animation and they only do the down jabs on the lib, once again, it's highly likely that they're going to freeze up when you don't do the lib, because they're looking for that lib, right? Just like what happened to me. I wasn't sure what button to press when I wasn't ready to do a down jab. If you see them freezing up without the stance, then just use no stance, poke them with a low. Use a big mid, something like that. So just use a healthy amount of back and forth and then determine if they freeze or if they're down jabbing. They might even start trying to call you out with bigger buttons, like let's say this 15 frame down forward 2 I've got recorded as well. So let's just say I wanted to do a read where I stayed in lib, right? A reason why it's risky is because as soon as they know, you're in big trouble. But once again, if I don't go into the stance, I can sort of step and block and I can punish and I can do so much more. And remember, that's 15 frames into +3 if we're going into lib, and if they do slower moves, well, some of the old moves work again. So it's just about labbing the frames, but I just wanted to highlight that you should occasionally, or more, maybe more than anything, not go into lib, depending on what your opponent's doing, because this down jab can definitely be countered by movement and low parry. So I'm going to leave it there, but if you have any questions, because I understand mental stack and, you know, trying to overwhelm your opponent might be new to some people, it's, you know, getting a bit more advanced in concept, please ask me questions, I'm happy to answer them, and I really appreciate everyone who watched my last video, watched this video, watch any of my videos, I greatly appreciate it. So good luck with everything Azucena and Tekken 8, and I'll see you in the next one.